Welcome back to the GM's Guide to Running Kingmaker. In this episode, we're continuing our dive into the kingdom building system. Last time, we laid the foundation, how to set up your kingdom, the phases of a kingdom turn, and even walk through a couple sample turns to show how it all plays out. This time, we'll talk about pacing, how to keep the kingdom turns from bogging down your campaign. We'll cover some of the common pitfalls and frustrations that game masters and players run into with the system. And finally, I'll share some popular house rules and variants that can smooth over the rough edges and make the whole experience a little more fun at the table. Before we jump in, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps these videos reach more game masters who are looking for prep tips for Kingmaker. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What kind of kingdom did your group build in your game? Have you changed or tweaked any of the kingdom rules? Drop your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I'll be checking them and may cover common ones in a future video. This is usually where I would say the video is only for game masters. However, as with my previous video, this one has been kept spoiler free so that if you are a player or wish to share with your players so they can understand the kingdom building system, it will not spoil any story elements. My next video, however, we will be going back to the campaign story details, so if you are a player or plan on being one, you will want to avoid those videos. One of the most divisive aspects of the Kingmaker adventure path is without a doubt the kingdom building system. While it is the main feature that truly sets Kingmaker apart from every other adventure path, not everyone enjoys this shift in playstyle. Instead of just exploring dungeons or fighting enemies, your group gets to shape an entire nation, deciding its laws, economy, armies, and future. For some groups, the kingdom system feels less like a role-playing game and more like a board game that's been dropped into the middle of a ttrpg. You've got resource management, turn phases, kingdom events, almost like a strategy game inside of your tabletop campaign. And that's the heart of the divide. Some groups love the change of pace, while others feel it interrupts the flow of traditional adventuring. Let's start with pacing, because honestly, it could be laid out better in the adventure path. One of the issues I personally ran into, and have seen other game masters also comment on, is how it becomes awkward trying to fit in kingdom turns naturally while the party is out adventuring, discovering new lands and completing quests. With the bulk of the advice for pacing being 1, the kingdom's level should stay within a level or 2 of the party, and 2, each kingdom turn occurs at the end of each month and will require a week of downtime. The adventure path does not give a lot of guidance beyond that. Say for example, when to pause the story and focus on kingdom building. It assumes the game master will intuitively piece it together. The best approach I've found, and what I believe is the intent in the adventure path, is to use the chapter breaks, either at the end of a chapter or sometimes between parts within a chapter, to let the players shift gears, handle their kingdom, and fast forward the clock. The big exception is warfare-related storylines, where the kingdom turns need to stay woven into the plot. It's also important to let the players wrap up any lingering quests or unfinished storylines before pivoting to the kingdom phase. Remember, these turns represent weeks or months passing in the game world. Once the kingdom phase begins, that fast forward can close the door on smaller side adventures, so give the group a chance to finish those threads first. In future videos, intended for game masters only, where I will be covering the following chapters, I will make my suggestions for how to prep that chapter and when to use these breaks to transition into the kingdom turns. The first several turns early on in the kingdom building phase are going to feel sluggish. Players are learning the rules, figuring out the phases, and just trying to get their heads around how it all works. And on top of that, we'll need to level up to catch up with the party level. To smooth that out, encourage your group to create a general plan. Which hexes do they want to claim first? Which buildings do they want to prioritize and in what order? How do they plan on handling resource gathering and consumption costs, knowing the future demands will only grow? Having that roadmap ready keeps the turns moving, reduces discussion time during the turns, and helps the players feel more like they're working towards a vision during Kingdom turns and less overwhelmed with choices and indecision. Let the players decide how they'd like to handle sharing turn responsibilities. They could rotate the control of the turns between players, having one who is in the hot seat make all the decisions and roll all the checks for that turn. Or each player could focus on their assigned leadership role and also managing an NPC or unassigned position. The downside here is that some players might not get to engage as much, depending on which roles are called for. But if everyone has a chance to contribute, it can help balance the experience at the table. Another way to approach Kingdom turns is to run them between sessions. You could do this online or schedule special sessions that are dedicated solely to Kingdom turns. This can be especially useful if you've got a split table where some of the players aren't as invested in the kingdom building aspects of the campaign. This method allows you to focus on the action and storytelling during your main sessions and handling the kingdom logistics separately. You could even bank kingdom levels and apply them only after the party completes a chapter or part of the story. This helps keep the pace moving without feeling like kingdom building is interrupting the momentum of the main adventure. Next, let's talk about events. The adventure path gives you both random events and chapter-specific events, and you'll need to decide when to present these. You could save the chapter-specific story events for the final turn or two. That way they act as a narrative bridge to the next part of the story, while random events fill the gaps and keep the kingdom phase unpredictable. Or you could use them to break up the kingdom turns and use an event that the characters can choose to interact with directly. Once kingdom turns are wrapped up, this is the perfect time to ask the players, what else did your characters do during this stretch of downtime? Kingmaker is one of the few adventure paths that naturally makes space for Downtime Mode, which a lot of other campaigns tend to skip. So lean into it. This is the moment for characters to focus on their personal goals. Do the characters spend time earning income at their trade, training with a mentor to retrain a feat, a skill, or even one of their class features? I'll link both the downtime rules and a helpful video in the description if you want a deeper dive. Now let's talk about the pitfalls and flaws of the kingdom building system, because while it's ambitious and unique, it definitely has some rough edges. As we discussed, pacing can be an issue. Especially initially, it can feel like a slow crawl. When the kingdom is first established, the adventurer expects the party to push through 3 or 4 levels to catch up with the party level. As we saw in the previous video, after just 2 turns, we had only earned 119 kingdom XP. At that pace, it would take more than 15 kingdom turns just to level up once. Events and chapter quests can grant more kingdom XP, but we're still looking at 10 turns per kingdom level at least. It can be tempting as a game master to accelerate that by either handing out extra XP or lowering the XP needed to level. This can work, but do so with caution. The risk with this is, it will mean fewer hexes will be claimed, fewer structures will be built, and in turn, fewer bonuses to the kingdom skill checks that only get harder as the kingdom advances. Another potential way to accelerate the first couple levels is to lower the control DC. This starts at 14 for level 1, and with most skills giving about a +2 to +6 bonus to checks. This means for checks to be successful, the party will need to roll an 8 to a 12 on the dice. If you find your party's failing too much, maybe adjust the control DC to 12 or even 10 until level 3. While an 8 to 12 on the dice seems average, the party can easily spend half a session or even a whole session going through kingdom turns and feel like they did not accomplish much at all. Yes, some activities still grant partial progress on a failure, but overall it often feels like the system is too punishing, making the players want to return to adventuring rather than slog through more turns. And finally, let's touch on ruin and unrest. On paper, these sound like serious problems for a kingdom. In practice though, they don't hit nearly as hard as you might expect. Unless you purposely let them spiral completely out of control, both ruin and unrest tend to feel more like speed bumps than real threats. That lack of bite makes them easy for players to shrug off instead of treating them as urgent, kingdom-shaking crises. Next, let's look at some home rules and variant options that can help smooth out the kingdom system. The first is the Kingdom in the Background variant rule. Each chapter provides a sidebar that details how your kingdom and the neighboring nations are progressing over time. Instead of treating this variant as an all-or-nothing option, you can also use them as a pacing guide. Let the players steer how their kingdom develops without having to roll checks for every single action. You could also create a hybrid, streamlined variant that simplifies the turn or period of time into a single check or two rather than several turns. Here's how it might look in play. The group decides they want to focus on expansion, diplomacy, or infrastructure. Instead of working through a dozen rolls, have them make a couple key checks tied to those priorities. Their results set the tone for that season of growth. Maybe a few setbacks on low rolls or a windfall on a strong success. And remember, you don't need to be overly punishing. Failures don't have to equal disaster. Save that for a critical failure. Instead, treat low rolls as a narrative opportunities, new challenges, unexpected complications, or colorful twists that make the kingdom feel alive. Another fun variant add-on to the campaign is a homebrew called Venture Capital. There are a couple different versions floating around, but I will link the Vance and Kerenshara's version in the description. This document links to the other useful works that it took inspiration from. In the Venture Capital homebrew, the characters seek outside investors for their kingdom. Noble houses from Brevoy or Rosslyn who are eager to stake a claim in this rising nation. In exchange for benefits like extra resources, military aid, or boosted stability, the party agrees to certain concessions or obligations. It's a great way to fold in political intrigue and roleplay, and it gives the players more to chew on than just numbers on a kingdom sheet. And finally, I have to recommend Vance and Kerenshara's Remastered Kingdom Building Rules. This is a community-made resource that offers a take-it-or-leave-it list of rule variants, each carefully designed to address a specific issue. The document clearly outlines what issue each change is meant to fix, how it's balanced, and what impact it might have on your game. One of the more popular fixes is accelerating the leveling pace, but there are many other thoughtful adjustments worth exploring. I'll link the full set of rules in the description if you'd like to check them out as well. Before we close, I want to leave you with one final recommendation. When you're first starting the campaign, or when you reach the point where the kingdom building becomes part of the game, run a few mock rounds with your players. Create a sample kingdom and try it out with the base rules, and then maybe with a few house rules, or even with the kingdom in the background approach. See how each version feels at your table. This gives your group a chance to understand the flow of the kingdom turns, but more importantly, it lets them decide how they want to experience this part of Kingmaker. Do they want the full system with all the details, or a streamlined modified version? Or would they rather just keep the kingdom in the background and focus on adventuring and roleplay? Whichever direction you take, the key is making sure the system supports your table's fun instead of getting in the way of it. And that's it for this episode. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your thoughts or experiences with the kingdom building system, because your experiences might help other game masters as well. In the next episode, we'll dive into Chapter 4, where the characters begin building their kingdom and face their first real challenges as rulers. As usual, that episode will be for game masters only, so if you're running Kingmaker, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.